everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled The Future of Enterprise Architecture, Mastering Digital Investment. My name is Michael Marks, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Before we begin, I would like to review a few housekeeping items regarding today's presentation. This is a live presentation, and although you can't see the others, there are a large number of people on today's call, so you may experience a slight delay when we click between slides. Our presentation will last approximately 45 minutes with some time for questions at the end. We will have an archived version of the presentation available within a few days and will send all participants an email with a link for the replay. All phone lines will be muted during today's call just to cut down on background noise, but we do welcome your questions. Please submit your questions at any point during the presentation and we will address as many as we can, time permitting. We will end the presentation with our question and answer session. A little about UMT360. UMT360 transforms how companies manage enterprise investments. PMO, IT businesses, and finance leaders trust UMT360 enterprise portfolio management solutions to effectively bridge the gap between execution and strategy. By digitizing investment planning and other controls across the portfolio silos, customers gain insight to drive better investment decisions and improve business performance. UMT360 is a Gold Microsoft partner and was named Microsoft Project and Portfolio Managed Partner of the Year in 2013 and a finalist in 2014. Gartner also named UMT360 a visionary in their 2014 Magic Quadrant for Integrated IT Portfolio Analysis Applications report. Today's speaker is Mike Ria, Chief Executive Officer of UMT360 and co-founder of UMT Consulting Group, LLC. Widely recognized as a strategic visionary, Mike is focused on helping businesses transform their operations and investment processes with powerful portfolio management solutions. I now make Mike the presenter. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, thank you. And good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome all of you to today's webcast. My objective today is to explore opportunities for the enterprise architects to play a key role in managing enterprise technology investments. As we look to the future of enterprise architecture, we'll be looking at the trends that are impacting the enterprise architecture and the dramatic forces that are affecting the enterprise architecture. We'll uncover some of the secrets and foundation of the digital investment model. We'll look at something called the investment management framework, and finally, we'll wrap up with some recommendations. So, with that, let's begin. There is no question that the EA role is poised to see dramatic change. Actually, I just got an email in the morning from Gartner, and one of the things, and it's addressed to the agenda of the 2015 Enterprise Architecture Summit, and they say that the digital business is driving radical change, and enterprise architects must be the first to respond. So the only question will be what you do to adapt to these forces. And let's take a look. By 2017, 75% of the IT organization will have a buy model capability. So what do we mean by buy model? Well, a very fast and brief answer. Many organizations will have to do or to deal with two things. They will have to renovate and manage their core infrastructure or the core applications, but many of the organizations will have to deal with innovation and with all the things that this new digital age is bringing to the table. The trend is pointing more and more towards a distinction between the foundational and the vanguard EA roles. The foundational enterprise architects are concerns what Gartner calls systems of record, where the vanguard EAs are primarily concerned with driving innovation and many times through disruptive technologies. Regardless of the type of EA that you like to be, a shift of skills from artifacts to business outcomes is required to remain relevant. The things that I would say that you should be concerned is how can organizations use business architecture to support digital business? What tools and frameworks are available to support the delivery of business outcomes? And finally, how will EA teams remain relevant if they do not evolve from artifact generation to a focus on business outcomes? Today for this discussion, we'll hear a lot not only about EA, but also about project portfolio management and something that we call the strategic project portfolio management or strategic PPM. It describes a discipline that is central to helping organizations realize strategy, manage change, and optimize investments. So let me address a few drivers that, in my opinion, they drive the EA transformation. And also I'm going to add some of my questions that I want you to ponder on. So the pace of disruptive innovation has accelerated. I used to see this type of innovation years ago happen every 10 to 20 years. Today it's happening every few years. So the questions are, or is, what are the implications for you? What are the implications for your organization? And what are the implications for your career? And what are your options when more than 75% of the business executives don't see the value of EA? And finally, as the majority of enterprise continues to fail to execute against their strategies, leading to suboptimal performance, what are the causes of these critical failures? Think. It is clear now that the nature of work is changing. So the question is, where can the EA move to deliver more strategic value and contribute to the enterprise and to their own careers? In the next 20 minutes, I will answer 3 questions. 1, what is the status of the investment management today? The second question, how do we build the framework that supports sound investment decisions? And finally, what are the principles of the investment success? So let's go to the question number 1. What is the status of the investment management today? Here are some of the facts that the most CIOs and business executives even have a ballpark understanding regarding the success of their investments. They don't know if it's 90%, 75%, or 50%. So if we don't know how effective our investments are, how can we manage and improve? Let's examine what's going on. Looking at statistics from Gartner, PMI, the CARES groups, together with UMT360 experience with over 100 engagements, it became quite clear that the most companies are not managing their investment well. When 46% are not realizing their business value, we know that there is a problem. Also, what percentage of the projects are delivering rate late or over budget? Well, the answer is 43%. We'll all agree that the statistics are depressing. And most organizations don't even know the level of their investment maturity. But I'll tell you, the average maturity is 38%. With a poor process effectiveness, can you make sound investment decisions? I doubt it. We created UMT360 to change that. Next, we'll answer the number 2 question. What are the principles of investment success? We'll uncover some secrets of the investment model. And specifically, we're going to hear a lot about connecting, costing, and roadmaps. Okay. Take a look at this one. That's something that was published in The Economist. And what we see here that the companies underperform, and the main reason is because their inability to execute on strategy. When I looked to this one, in the beginning I was expecting that maybe the biggest problem was been formulating a strategy. And however, that's not the case. And actually, I'm not surprised because many of the strategies, they are really very close to each other. And perhaps the difference is in executing the strategy. And here we see the beginning of the thinking of building the case, the connecting strategy to execution. It is important. Let's take a look at this one. This was done by Gartner. And here they look how people they evaluate their investments. And what is really interesting, the 68%, they use the return on investment. Well, in order to use the return on investment, you need 2 things. You need to know the benefits, and you need to know the cost. So again, this one is building the case for the importance of having a very strong financials. And finally, let's take a look at this one. The 63% of the business leaders believe that their organization, they respond too slow to change. 63%. Well, there are many things that can be said about change and the speed to change. However, one thing that will affect it between the other things in the agility is the ability to have a roadmap of knowing where the change is going, knowing what is the change, and understanding all the components of change. One thing, and I keep thinking also about the change, you need to understand how the roadmaps, in fact, the clock speed, the enterprise clock speed, and the agility. Okay, so right now, that's the question that puzzled me. Are the current methods and processes for managing the enterprise investments obsolete? I think that they are archaic, maybe not obsolete, but they are archaic. And I think they've been influenced by 80-year-old thinking that goes all the way back to Frederick Taylor. And if my assessment is true, then why? Then why? Well, because they might be, the methods that we're using today, they might be inadequate for disconnected organizations, for organizations that are not operating at high speed, where they have a low level of complexity, where cost and value constraints, they are not extremely important, and with the world without the threat of disruptions. The key question that puzzles me, are the current processes and methods archaic? So we answered this. And there are a few organizations that they can operate and the conditions that satisfy the new methods. To succeed, we need to pay attention to 3 broad areas. Connecting, which is about linking strategy to execution. Costing, which is about optimizing spending. And roadmaps, this is about aligning the clock speeds. All right, let's drill down. And I'm going to pick up the speed, try to make up for the time lost. Okay, so to be truly successful, every organization must have a well-articulated strategy and an execution plan. Take a look at the slide, and you see on the top the strategy, which will include the business context, the business driver, and all this good stuff. And usually organizations, they have on the bottom the execution, which includes everything that is required in the execution. Well, so why do organizations that have a good strategy still struggle? They struggle because there is a gap between strategy and execution. And organizations have this gap because the lack of clarity on their capability that they need to improve to achieve its strategy. Capabilities are the missing link that connects strategy to execution. But what exactly are capabilities? And I listed some of them here. Capabilities are the things that the company uses to create its products and serve its markets. They are things like business processes, business skills, and technology. Without this basic understanding, it will be very difficult to truly align strategy with execution. So why are capabilities important when we talk about the execution? Well, competitive success is directly related to how much an organization should invest in these capabilities to transform them into a strategic competitive advantage. But it's not always obvious which business processes are strategic. And identifying them require insight, creativity, and most important, a capability model. Let's take a look here as an example, knowing the importance of capabilities that I built for you. So that's an example from financial industry. Actually, it's from the insurance. And here on the top, you can see the strategic drivers of this company. And here I listed 3 of them. One of them in particular seems to be extremely important to them, which is reducing the loss ratio. And as you look to this one, there will be a few questions. Okay, this is the driver. How are we going to implement that? And one thing that we suggest to do, really to map the capabilities, to understand which capabilities are related to this driver. So here I provided a map of all the capabilities of the firm. And we can see that managed claims and these drivers, they are related. But we need to go deeper. And we can look to other processes, or sub-processes, and perhaps 2 of them, they are directly related, which is processing and investigating claims and settling claims. And the question would be, then, which applications are related to them? And we can see that there are 2 applications that are related to them. So right now, we can see the drivers, that they are impacting the processes or the capabilities, and they are related to some applications that they will have to be improved or built. So the question is, again, the reason we're doing that, where do we need to invest? In which process, in which applications, and perhaps even further, which platforms will need to be changed, or to be invested in. And finally, here are the programs. And there is a program called Claims at the Accident Scene. And obviously this program might have a few projects related to that. So if you look for a second, here it is. It's a clear line of sight from business strategy to execution. You can see that. And organizations that use this capability model to close the gap between strategy to execution, we've seen 2 things that are happening to them. One of them, they enjoy better ROI. Why? Because they can disproportionately focus their efforts and invest in a few things. They make all the difference. And they can increase the clock speed. Well, to sum up what we just said, this ability to connect and link strategy to execution impacts many of the things related to the investment model. And I listed a few of them. Let me take one of them in particular, and what everybody is, I guess, these days concerned with is innovation. Today, we need lots of innovation from all possible sources. It's not enough to have top-down planning or bottom-up evaluation. We need also to have some, what we call, middle or gap-driven that drive the investment. This model allows you to derive innovation from all directions. And the second thing, which looks a little bit more mundane, but is not, is manage. Well, you cannot manage anyway today in isolation. You need a 360-degree perspective on the decisions. For example, if you want to cancel a project or something like that, the question is not about what will happen to the project, but what's happening to the business. So right now, let's go to a poll.
Looks like there's 29% says there's a large gap, 50% says there's a moderate gap, and 21% with the minimum gap. Are these normal numbers here?
Yes, they are normal numbers. And what I will do, I want to spend some more time with these numbers, and I'm going to send detailed analysis to all the participants. We're moving to the second thing, which is the cost. So the key objective of mastering the cost aspects of the enterprise investments are, number one, transparency, greater control and optimization. Number two, greater flexibility in budgeting and tracking process. And finally, extremely important, greater agility. For example, responding to new opportunities like, and that's not a new opportunity, but moving to the cloud, evaluating what's the impact of moving to the cloud, evaluating what might be the impact of adopting some of the new forces in the digital thing. Okay, so let's dig a little bit further into the financials. And one statement that I want to make, that today we cannot be any more worried about historical projections. We need to move much faster. And we need to move from historical projection to leading and accelerating change. Take a look at the charts. I presented some of them. On the left side is a chart that really shows all the organizational structure, and especially as it regards to budgets. And here you can see how the money is flowing down from projects into applications and to the business. What's important to take out from that actually the enterprise structure is going to drive the cost. So just knowing what's the cost is not enough. You need to understand the enterprise structure. And why is that? Because you can change the price structure, and perhaps you can change the cost. So just observing the cost and saying that, I hope better next time, that's not something which is acceptable. Take a look to the right. And here we realize that the project cost is not enough. You need to manage not only the cost of the projects, but find the elusive formula of value, how the project is impacting capabilities and applications and so forth. So in many of our calls and meetings with existing and prospects, we hear a few things. All of them, they are looking for accurate project and cost and total cost of ownership. They want to model financials. They want to understand cost drivers. They want to manage strategic investment profiles. And what is that? That's a very important thing. If you segment your organization or your investment into run, grow, and transform ratios, you want to manage that, and you want to achieve perhaps the ratio that is important for your organization. And finally, all of us are concerned of managing the benefits. So just to sum up, as we talk about cost, there are some questions that many organizations are struggling with. One of them, can we manage the investment with just ballpark understanding of the project cost? I'll definitely say no, you cannot do that. Can you prioritize with a full understanding of financial impact? No. Can you manage and track without consideration for cost? Absolutely no. So we looked at the importance of connecting and costing IT. But without a competency-based transformation roadmap, what we're really talking about a bunch of good ideas. So the next thing, we're going to go and learn more about that roadmaps, but before that, let's go to another poll.
Thank you to those who have voted, and
Okay.
here are our poll results here.
Okay, I'll briefly address them. However, given that we lost a little bit of time, I promise everybody that I'm going to spend a good amount of time thinking and comparing those, benchmarking to what we have so far. So just a quick thing. It's good to see that 46, they agree with the statement, the financials are important, and 35 disagree. So altogether, it's over 80% they are in agreement. That's great. Let's move to the roadmaps. So as we're moving to roadmaps, so what roadmaps do for us? Well, there are two things that come to my mind. They focus the organization to understand and respect the relevance of timing. Everybody knows that it's difficult to time markets, but can we time everything else inside the enterprise? And the second thing, they speed up the execution because they provide greater agility. Okay, so what you have here, we have our view of what a roadmap should be. And here what you're seeing, 3 roadmaps. I'm going to talk in some level of detail in a minute. And what you might be surprised, because many people, when they hear about roadmaps, they are typical thinking about project Gantt charts. But you know what? I don't think they are enough, because they don't meet the objectives that I outlined before. So what the roadmaps need to do is help us to answer perhaps 3 questions. What is the timeline of our strategy? And the second one, what's the timeline of our capability transformation? And finally, when things are changing, such as project delay, cancellation, scope changes, what's the overall impact? And to answer that, we need these 3 types of roadmap. The first one on the top, we labeled this strategic planning roadmap. And what it does, it communicates the big picture and focus the organization on the business outcomes. The second one, the operation planning roadmap, is about apps and technology changes, and to ensure that it's aligned to execution and to the strategy. And finally, the execution roadmap, all of us, we know, really what they help us to coordinate planning and execution of major projects. So, a quick summary of that organizations aspire to be nimble and respond quickly to emerging business needs and opportunities. We know that. Some of the facts, and here is an important thing, because we'll demystify some of the thinking. Accelerating the IT clock speed is not a new objective, so I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. Over the last 10 years or so, companies have invested heavily in accelerating development and engineering. Many consider the project delivery to be the biggest barrier in meeting these speed expectations. To speed these activities, organizations invested in practices such as agile development. Unfortunately, the majority of this investment will not have the expected effect on speeding up the IT clock because they are only focused on execution. The next step is to accelerate the speed of everything. And the roadmap's importance is increasing and is shifting not from planning only, but also in responding. Let's do another poll.
Well, Mike, looks like we got a pretty good voter turnout for this one, with 40% agreeing and 40% strongly agreeing.
It's almost 80% that they are in one level or another of agreement. I love it. This is good. We're going in the right direction, and I think the thing we're talking about, they resonate well with you. So let's keep moving. What I did for the last few minutes, I talked with you about the secrets of the digital investment model. I kept it very simple because actually when originally I was thinking about it, I wrote 7 to 10 items, and I said, can you make it down to 3? And those are the 3 that I think that they make the most importance. So we know right now what matters, but the question is, why are we still guessing when to invest and how to manage our investment? So my goal in the next session, is to provide you with the access with the same process, information, rule, and tools that are available to professionals, or what I call the best-in-class companies. And right now, let's address the third question. How do we build a framework that supports sound investment decisions? This is where we make the transition from concepts and principles to frameworks that they are easy to implement. Some might even say that they are fun, but I'll leave it up to you to decide. A good framework has to have, or has to be, focus on your business scenario. And when I mean the business scenario, cannot address everything. They should address specific scenarios. If you're dealing with application portfolio management, and if you're dealing with how do you invest and how you make the decision, that's a focus. Also, we need also an ability for diversity. For example, if you are a foundational architect, you're going to need a framework that address the foundational type of investment. If you're a vanguard, perhaps you need a framework that's a little bit different. So it has to be focused. Second, although it's focused, it has to be holistic. In other words, needs to cover process, information, and governance. And it has to be almost as a guide that will be actionable. And it has to be measurable, because at the end of the day, you need to meet certain performance in terms of results, process, and people. Okay. And here is a picture of the way we see the frameworks. And here is and I'll explain a little bit. Again, the most important conditions for the framework that he has is to describe well the process, the information, the roles, and the rules. And here we're looking, let's start with the process. What we have here, we have a process of investment that has 5 major stages: create, select, plan, manage, and evaluate. And under each one of these stages, we have specific and detailed processes and gates. And here is an example that might be different in your organization. And the question is, this framework, the thing, is being inspired or driven by a business scenario. And it is holistic because it covers everything. And right now, as you look to some of the processes, guess what? They connect extremely well to the principles that we talked a few minutes ago. Let's take a look to the process number 3, map strategy to business capabilities. What we're really talking about, connecting strategy to execution. Let's take a look to number 5, allocate funds. Well, you got to be serious about financials to be able to do that. And let's take a look to number 7, which create a multi-year roadmap. Well, we're talking about roadmaps. So all these elements and the principles, they are being used. All right. Let's take a look to information. And that's the next one. Okay. So there is a famous saying in a business, you cannot manage what you don't measure. I believe that either Deming or Drucker said that. I'd rather modify this saying and slightly say that you cannot manage without information. But we believe that throughout the enterprise investment decisions today, people rely too much on experience and intuition and not enough on data. And even when they have information, they're drawn in data and overwhelmed by the volume and the variety of data and reports. And then we believe the manager needs information to evaluate and manage their investment. And knowing more about the investment, it should impact the decision making. And it's not enough to provide reports and let the people figure out what they can do then. There is a plenty of evidence that if we make more data available in a context that is useful to the decision makers, then the quality of the decision and the speed will improve significantly. So how we solve this challenge? Well, by clustering the information around the process model. Let's take an example. Let's drill down on number 12. And here is an example how the PMO can use the information to track their investment more effectively. And in here you can see that we track information about strategic yield, about perhaps cost variance, about time variances, and about benefits, and all the things that we care about. This information connects strategy to execution, talking about the value, is based on lots of financials and the cost. And in some of them, also use extensive roadmaps. So let's go back. And right now we're going to talk about roles. So what is the most important driver to manage enterprise investment? It's not technology, it's people. Organization cannot succeed without the right people assigned to the right roles and right organization structures. So what do we need to ensure for this to happen? We ask 3 questions. What decision must be made? Who should make these decisions? And how should we get organized to make those decisions? What you see on the left side, you see perhaps different roles in the organization that they can play, business, EA, technology, and all that. But it's not about what the people are, how we organize these people. And perhaps one of the important things that I see a breakthrough in the thinking, unfortunately, many times in the past, people they organize what I call the horizontal labyrinth of strategy committee, operation committee, enterprise architectures committee, and PMOs, and everything is moving vertical and moving down little by little. But this, I'm not sure if it works. So you need to address that. Do you want to be organized horizontal, or maybe you want to give a consideration that you want to be organized vertical, not horizontal, and maybe vertical. And it's for your organization to make this decision. Because at the end of the day, you're thinking how you're going to connect people that they have the knowledge to make the enterprise investments. And how do you create an organization structure that inspires synergistic relation between IT and the business? Let's talk about the next one, which is important. It's rules. The question is, why do you need rules? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you some things in details. But rules are the same thing that you need brakes in the car. The reason you need brakes in the car is not to slow down and not to stop, actually to go faster. Imagine a car without brakes. I don't think you'll go very fast. And so what are really the objectives of the rules? There are about, maybe I can think about 4 or 5 objectives. First, we need to determine the authority of the users. We need to set and enforce rules like hurdle rules. In other words, what's considered an acceptable investment. It's extremely good for governance, risk, and compliance. They are important to detect hotspots and to alert the people. Let's take a look at some of the questions that people struggle when they're looking at the rules. I listed some of them. I'll address only a few of them. So I'll ask, who will approve fund allocation? That's a question. Well, this question is going to trigger a rule. Or the second one, what is the tracking tolerance? Well, can we manage performance without clarification? What is green, which means it's perfect? What is yellow, which means that is ready to move out from being okay to needing attention? And what is red? We need a rule for that. So some observation. Rules, without doubt, integrate execution of strategy. The financials are embedded in many of the rules. And rules aspire, more than anything else, to speed the clock and increase the agility. Let's go right now to the last poll.
Thank you, Juan, for voting. Looks like 50% are consulted in many aspects, Mike. Is this
that's involved in many aspects. Consultants, so actually it's like 65%. Interesting, 65%. Well, that's a very good news, because I think in some of my recommendations and all that, I want to provide you some ways of thinking how you can get involved even more. So with this, let's get to a slide that is going to wrap up and come with some recommendations. And I listed a few of them. And I know that I cover a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. And even we had a small break in the middle. But the question is, where do you start? Well, the first thing that you might want to do before you do anything, you're going to diagnose the current enterprise investment capabilities. And why, or maybe how? Well, you might want to start with documenting and assessing the current state from the perspectives that I presented here, from results, from process, organization structure, rules, and supporting software. The second thing, and that's a very difficult one, you need to win over stakeholders. And to make it simple, I'll split the stakeholders in 2 groups, external and internal. For the external, you need to grab their attention to understand that what we do, and also to understand how we might be helpful to them. The articulation of a stretch goal for this effort is extremely important. For the internal, is by actively eliciting operational knowledge from them. We not only lay the intellectual foundation for the change effort, but we also want to gain the employee support for us to succeed. So number 3, you need to take a comprehensive approach for the digital investment. By now it's clear that we're not only moving boxes around the chart, but you need to pay attention to process, information, rules, and tools also, and they must be integrated and aligned. If I might talk about the investment technology, I can tell you 2 things. Whatever we're talking here today is not really PPM and it's not really EA. So you got to be aware of what I call a stretched PPM or a stretched EA. And people, we need to develop the skills to influence the digital investment management. What we know that the lack of change readiness can usually be attributed to issues of skills or skill and will. Don't worry, I'll give you a little bit on that. And finally, you need to create a roadmap. You need to create a roadmap that includes priorities and plans and a rollout program, and you need to track progress. Well, before I really leave, I must tell you that the EA possesses many key strengths, skills, and talents that help differentiate this role from others within the organization. And they include, between the others, creativity, pragmatism, and consensus building. And because of what I think, the EA is perfect fit for being a key contributor in the investment management team. And perhaps the best way to start is to evaluate if you possess this variety of capabilities and look to qualities like the interpersonal skills, the planning and analytical skills, and some basic knowledge of financial modeling and budgeting. Today, there are more opportunities than ever for the EA to transform the organization, manage their investments. And that's a cause for optimism, because it's clear that the EA is well positioned, and you in particular, to play a major role in all phases of investment management. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And at this time, we'll take on questions. We have about 5 minutes to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, I encourage everyone to type those into the question pane, and we'll try to get to those as time permits. Looks like we got our first question here, Mike. And it's asked, you referred to connect as a first step. What exactly are we connecting, and what is the best way to go about that?
Well, what we're really connecting, we're connecting to, I would say, two major things that actually reside in the two different portions of the organization. We're connecting the strategy that resides somehow in the ratify portion of the organization to the execution. And what we're really connecting, we have business drivers that are very difficult to understand how they will be deployed. And what we have on the bottom of the list, we have things that are very detailed and very specific. And here we have a problem, because we're trying to connect things that they are kind of abstract or more in the business terms to things that they are really specific. So that's one connection. The other connection, so that's in the planning stage. The other connection is in execution. We have people that are executing things, and they are communicating back the details of the execution, and sometimes why things they don't work, and what are the scope changes that they are making. So those are very technical details, and somebody sitting on the top is asking a very simple question: what does this mean to me? And so here, more than anything else, we're establishing a model that everybody can understand. We're laying down a common language, and we're avoiding something that we sometimes joke about, lost in translation.
The next question, how do you link business capabilities to strategies and drivers?
Without joking, very careful. But what you really need to do, there need to be a level of detail, and here the thing is very tricky. You can go and decompose everything to the lowest level of detail. You can decompose process to lowest level of detail, applications and technology and the whole thing. And the problem is that if you do that, not only that will take a long amount of time, actually perhaps a certain level, the information is not needed and will be even further lost in translation. So the way to do it, you do it like you're taking an onion and you're cutting layers, and you're describing level 1, and then you're asking yourself a question: do I have enough information on level 1 to really drive the investment package? for the program. If there is enough information, then I think you should stop there, because speed is and ease of implementation, sometimes they are equally important with getting the highest level of detail.
Thank you, Mike. Unfortunately, we have ran out of time for today's presentation. I'd like to thank Mike for presenting for us today. As always, this webinar will be available. We will email everyone once the link is available for replay. You will have the video and the slides to download for your use. And we thank you, everyone, for joining us today.